Hello, welcome to a new podcast by JCU Productions. Today we'll be discussing Only Murders in the Building Series 3, as well as providing the evidence based on each character throughout the series. You may be wondering what makes me so qualified to present this podcast. I'll have you know I was featured on the official Only Murders in the Building Instagram page. Yeah, I bet you're jealous now. And yes, this is that same outfit. Just to clarify, I know that this podcast will be out after the third series has already aired, and at the time of filming this, I have seen the whole series, but for the notes that I've made for episodes 1 to 3, I had not yet seen who the murderer was. But don't worry, whether or not you have watched the series, you can enjoy this podcast as I'm going to criticise everyone equally and not reveal who the murderer is until the last episode, in case you for some reason want to watch along with the show whilst listening to this podcast. Okay, so let's get into it. Only Murders in the Building, Season 3, Episode 1. The Show Must. A year after solving Bunny's murder, the true crime trio are back, and this time they are taking to the stage. As on the opening night of Death Rattle, superstar Ben Glenroy drops dead centre stage while the world is watching. But who would want to close the curtains on Ben's career? We are here to figure it out. Okay, let's go through our characters for this series. We have Charles, of course. We've got Mabel, Oliver, Howard, Joy, Tobbit, Loretta, Cinder Canning, Jonathan, Kimber, Bobo, Donna DeMio, Katie, Clifford DeMio, Ty, and of course, Ben Glenroy. Okay, so it all starts off on the opening night of Death Rattle. Ben leaves his dressing room to head out onto the stage where he collapses and falls to the ground. He's been poisoned. Now we see a flashback of 1962 Broadway at the Gooseberry Theatre. We see a young Loretta transfixed while watching a performance on the stage. This shows that she has had passion for theatre from a young age, and we then continue to see her put in years and years of training and dedication, followed by rejection after rejection, waiting for her chance in the spotlight. We find out that Death Rattle is also performed at the Gooseberry Theatre. Next, Oliver is exhausted after all the auditions he's had to watch for Death Rattle and is about ready to give up when Loretta comes in. Interestingly, Loretta wasn't actually on the audition list, so is considered a walk-in. We get to see Loretta's audition, and her dialogue is, "A child needs to feel at all times safe. They need to feel protected with the kind of ferocity only a mother can summon. Would I kill to protect a child in my charge? That is the question you have for me, I assume, detective. To that I would say, without so much as blinking, I would kill without compunction for the sake and safety of any child in my care. So now you have your answer." And we see the moment where Loretta finally gets her big break and gets asked the big question, "Where have you been?" After the opening theme, we see Ben's brother Dickie. After the opening theme, we see Ben's brother Dickie upset as Ben is wheeled out the theatre, repeating, "No, they already pronounced him." So we know that Ben is definitely dead. We now get to see the table read of Death Rattle prior to the tragedy. We hear Howard say that he auditioned for a role in Death Rattle, but Oliver said him to be his assistant instead. Did he kill Ben out of jealousy for not being able to get a role in Death Rattle? Who knows? We learn that this is Cliff's first production effort alongside Donna. Ben is late to the table read, which can annoy everyone involved in the production. Ben gets tons of applause when he enters, and he says, "This is my manager, Dickie. He's not just my manager, but he's also my brother. But please, don't say nepotism, because he gets very insecure about his abilities." Dickie looks very uncomfortable throughout the whole speech, so it's kind of a rude thing for Ben to bring up when he knows it will upset his brother. Ben immediately starts being flirtatious with Kimber, which is setting up a romance plot. NDAs, or non-disclosure agreements, are handed out by Ben regarding his documentary team recording, which makes you question, where the hell were they on opening night? Tobbit is the documentarian, as well as the guy with the stupid name. Sorry to any potential topics that might be watching this video, but hey, don't hate me, hate your parents. Loretta infuses that her friends are excited that she is working with co-bro Ben Glenroy, which shows that she knows about Ben and his career. We learn that Mabel is a massive fan of Ben's film Girl Cop. We also find out that Ben has moved into Amy Schumer's old apartment in the Arconia. Ben gets angry with Dickie because there are cookies present and he is on a diet for co-bro and cookies are his weakness. The table read finally starts and Loretta reads her lines in a Scottish dialect followed by French Canadian. She nervously says this is how she does her process by analysing the character and area including the timing. So Loretta gets off to a rough start in the table read, missing cues as well. Most of this is probably nerves and awkwardness as well as excitement, as this is her big break. During the break in the table read, Ben tries to convince Oliver to fire Loretta as he doesn't think that she is good enough. Loretta talks with Oliver about her nerves and pleads to him not to give up on her. Oliver says she is special. Anyone who can't see that is either dumb or blind, or a combination of the two. And if she goes, he goes, which really shows the closeness of the two. This is the end of the flashback and we head back to the present day. Loretta was in her dressing room, upset after Ben's death. Oliver suggests everyone going back to his apartment. When the group get to the Arconia, the elevator has broken down. Donna says to get a statement out to the press after Ben's death, as Oliver tries to reason that the show doesn't have to die just because Ben did. But Donna has her doubts, as this isn't the first catastrophe for an Oliver Putnam play, remembering the horrendous events of his production Splash, which, coincidentally, was performed in the Gooseberry Theatre as well. In Oliver's apartment, we see Katie wiping away tears with Ben's opening night gift, the hanky. Howard had one too, to which Katie said, "I didn't realise assistants got one too. How generous of Ben," in a snarky way, which shows that Katie and Howard don't seem to get along. Mabel is really eager to get a podcast going as she wants to work with Oliver and Charles again, and the poisoning of a big movie star could be big. Did Mabel kill Ben so she could podcast with her friends? Charles states that he was relieved that Ben had died and the show was cancelled as he couldn't do 8 shows a week. Joy also isn't too upset over the show being cancelled as it means there is more time for her and Charles. Loretta gets Charles to check her earrings as she had to get out of her costume fast. What could that mean? Why did she have to get out of it so quick? Loretta is also pleased that the show is over as it means she can be with Oliver as they no longer needed to be professional. Oliver seemed happy about this also. Suddenly, Ben walks in alive. Yes, the same Ben Glenroy we saw die on stage. Case solved. No murder. Dickie doesn't look too happy as he follows Ben into Oliver's apartment. When Ben talks about his poisoning after coming back from the hospital, he says maybe it was something he ate. We know he was on a diet for co-bro, and it appeared that Dickie was the one preparing food for Ben. Ben came back realising how awful he was and said he was ready for change. We now get into the comments that Ben made to everyone after he returned. His comments to Kimber were, "I'm so sorry I made everything messy between us. I fucked up, but I'm going to make it right." Which gives more proof that the two were seeing each other. He continues his speech and talks to Ty next, stating, "Ty, forgive me, please, for getting so mad at you for wanting to use my trainer. It's just Hutch is my secret weapon and, you know, there's no shot you can afford him. But I suppose I can give you his digits." He then says to Jonathan, "Jonathan, my understudy, when I started, I was never going to let you ever step a foot on that stage. But moving forward, I'm going to consider it. Maybe a Wednesday matinee." He moves on to Donna and Cliff, and because in this dialogue there's like a change between the two, I'm going to put the hat on when Cliff speaks. He goes, "Donna, my beloved producer, and your boy." "Cliff, it's Cliff." "I know, that's what I said. Look, I know I haven't been easy to deal with, and all my complaints about the size of my dressing room, and the shape of my dressing room, and the colour palette of my dressing room. Basically, everything I've ever said about my unnecessarily shitty dressing room. I take it all back. I'm really so sorry, Donna. And I'm so sorry, boy. Cliff. Right. Would be great if we could fix up my dressing room, by the way. It's the last time I'm going to mention anything, alright? Pinky swear. In this comment, we can see how annoying Ben must have been towards Donna and Cliff, and how Ben hasn't even bothered to learn the name of his director, as Cliff has to keep reminding him of his name. He then swiftly moves on to Bobo. Bobo, look at Bobo. You know what? You're such a funny guy, and all I ever do is say no to you. But I promise you, no more no's for Bobo. Next, it's KT's time for confrontation. And again, Katie talks for this, so when Katie talks, I'll put the hat on. KT, my bad for accusing you of stealing my mangoes. The tofu season is really short, and it's pretty much the only fruit I can eat on the Cobro diet. Katie says, I know it was coming from a place of love. Which Ben replies, it wasn't, but thank you. Next, we have Loretta. Oh, and Loretta, the consummate professional. But Cobro knows a fellow snake when he sees one. Finally, he starts confronting Charles, and again, when Charles talks, I'll wear the hat. And Charles, oh, don't worry about me, you can skip me. I get it, you're a new man, which is exciting. You and I never got off on the right foot. Nope. And if anyone here was happy that I was maybe dead, I bet it was you. Yeah. I know you don't have many more years left to hone your craft, and I get that every day counts. And after this experience, I really get it now. So, starting over. So we know that there was a sort of feud going on between Ben and Charles. Ben's phone rings and Dickie hands it over. Ben says he's going to go somewhere quieter for it and goes off to his apartment. Dickie leaves with Ben. Loretta and Charles don't look happy that the show is back on, but Oliver and the D'Amios are quite happy. Loretta states Ben may be back, but that doesn't change the fact that he's a fucking asshole, before leaving shortly after Ben. Mabel, Charles and Oliver head back to her apartment while she grabs her things. Charles and Oliver make conversation over Joy's crazy relatives. Does the apple fall far from the tree? We learn that Mabel has finished renovating her aunt's apartment and that it has been sold. The elevator is fixed and Charles, Oliver and Mabel take it. Mabel is kind of upset that she can't do a podcast with the two because there wasn't a murder, as Charles reminds Mabel that they couldn't have made a podcast about Ben anyway, as he didn't die in the building. Splat, splat, splat. Blood starts dripping down onto Charles's hat. The three look up as the elevator ceiling starts creaking, and crash! Ben's dead body drops through the ceiling. And the closing words from Uma of, you gotta be fucking kidding me, really sums it up. So throughout this episode, I have been putting on all the different information that I've been reading out onto each of the characters, which I will show you. But it seems that for this episode, Loretta is being pointed at to be the murderer because she's got the most information. She seems the most shifty for now. But that could change. But here are all of the notes. We'll start off with Charles. Then there's Mabel. Then we've got Oliver. Cinder hasn't made an appearance. The one who's got the most so far, Loretta. Who's got a lot of different notes. We've got Tolbert, who only's got one so far, and that's just that he's a documentarian. We've got Joy. Howard. Jonathan. Dickie. The victim, Ben Glenroy, Kimber, Ty, Clifford Demio, KT, Donna Demio, and Bobo. Thank you to those who have watched this far and have been interested in all the different clues for the suspects on Only Murders in the Building. This has been episode 1 and a JCU Audio Productions. Thank you for watching.